Hello and welcome to Life Talk for July 9th, 2019. I'm Mark Crutcher and I'm joined by my usual suspects, the co-host, my daughter Sheila, the Doppy,
Hi.
and Renee. We got to get you another nickname. I've got some for you.
Rennie.
Rennie. But we can come up with others.
Yes.
Yeah,
Hello.
more original.
More original than Rennie. Yep. And we have some that we could use.
Well, my family members call me Nene, Aunt Nene, so.
I'm not doing that. That's pure dorky right there. I'm not anyway, we got a lot of stuff to get to today. First off, we had this situation was in England, but we've had this here. A British woman is suing the national health system there because the doctor she went to didn't tell her that her child was going to have Down syndrome. And she's saying she wasn't given the opportunity to kill the baby, and she wants $250,000 in compensation for having a live baby.
Right.
First of all, how horrible of a person do you have to be to say, oh, I wish my daughter was dead?
Plenty horrible.
Well, I mean, she just doesn't have any motherly instincts. A mother would not do this. She would love her children unconditionally. I have friends that have children that have Down syndrome, and they are a joy.
Yes.
A joy to
Absolutely.
them.
You know, I think people ought to go to the internet and read Gene Stallings. We've talked about him before.
Oh, yes.
Former coach of the Dallas Cowboys and at Alabama, won a national championship at Alabama. I know that kind of grates on you.
Yeah.
But anyway, and he was assistant coach at Dallas, and he had a child with Down syndrome. And he's talked about how the saddest day in his life, his little boy lived to be like 33 or 34 years old.
And he went to all the games with him.
And he became kind of a mascot for the Cowboys when he was here, and for A&M when he coached there, and for Alabama when he was there, and where they won a national championship.
Yeah, right. Yeah, against OU.
Point that out. But anyway, it's an absolutely loving story about this man, and he still lives not too far from here. We've talked about having him on the show, but anyway, talking about his child with Down syndrome and what a incredible joy he was. I've never known anybody that had a Down syndrome child that didn't say how loving and joyful they were.
Yeah, exactly.
And
they're carefree. I mean, just love life. They have a zest for life like no other. They don't have the worries and the weight.
Right.
You know.
And you know, we have a lot of, we have the Denton State School here, and there's a lot of Down syndrome children that are in the school there. And a lot of the local businesses here hire them. And so we come across them all the time. One of our favorite Mexican restaurants, there's that little girl that works there that fills up water glasses and brings chips and all that kind of stuff. And there's one at the Whataburger that we go to.
Yeah.
And they're just the nicest, sweetest people.
As helpful as any of us.
And the main thing is, whether they were sweet or not, they still are human beings that have a right to life.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And this woman has no maternal instincts.
Right.
She's got no morals. Her name is Edita Mordell. She's 33 years old in Reading, England. But back when we did a lot of medical malpractice cases against the abortion industry, or abortion malpractice cases, hardly a week went by that we didn't get contacted by someone wanting us to provide litigation support services for these wrongful birth suits.
Yeah.
And of course, we never would, and I got in some real heated conversations with some of these people.
I mean, it's mainly like Down syndrome and CF, and you know,
mainly Down syndrome.
And how awful is it to think that your child could possibly read this information and know that their parents want them dead? Like, I mean, how sad, how sick is it?
Well, you know, that sick is the right word, and I got into a lot of really heated arguments with some of these people. Them trying to justify saying I'm gonna kill my baby.
Why they want them dead?
Perfect.
Well, go ahead and kill them.
I
mean, what's the difference?
I used to tell these people, you're sicker than your baby will ever be.
Yeah.
You're sicker right now than your baby will ever be.
True.
It's a good thing that those people, I haven't run across those people. They would not want to hear what I would have to tell them.
Well, they didn't want to hear what I had to tell them, believe me. But, you know, it was the origin of my view that y'all have heard me express many times before. I don't think that people who label themselves pro-choice on abortion should be allowed to adopt children. I've always thought that, and I've said that many, and I've even caught flack from pro-lifers who say, "Well, now, you're over the top on that." Listen, when you have a baby, I think about when we got you. I mean, you were 6 days old when we adopted you, or when we got you. We had already adopted you. If I had been a pro-abort, I would have been looking at you saying 7 days ago, this child did not have a right to life.
This
right?
child could have been
Killed,
aborted.
and I'm okay with that. I don't think that people who are pro-choice on abortion have the morals or the maternal or paternal instincts to be a parent. They should not be allowed to adopt a child. There are millions of good, decent pro-life people in this country who are in line to adopt a baby.
Yes.
Yeah.
I saw something several years ago. Now I'm sure it's worse today than it was then. That something like 22 families are on waiting lists to adopt for every baby that's adopted.
I know it's so hard to adopt, and I just don't understand that whole system, and it shouldn't be
So
like
why
that.
would you give one of these babies that there's a line of people wanting to adopt? Why would you give one to somebody who has
that wants a child killed that is okay with an abortion?
What's the difference between their child that they adopted and somebody else's child that they believe can be killed?
So if this child grows up and gets pregnant, if it's a female, or if it's a male and gets another lady pregnant or girl, is it okay for that for them to abort?
They would
or
say
for their
yes.
son's girlfriend to abort?
They
I
would
mean,
say yeah.
Say
that's their
yes.
grandchild.
Like I said,
it's
they're not morally qualified.
And so I, dare them to tell their child, hey, we adopted you. We're grateful to have you, but I believe that your birth mom had the right to kill you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Hey, I made a mistake a minute ago. Before our first story, I forgot to introduce.
he always gets forgotten about.
We forgot to
Ernie.
introduce Ernie.
Yeah.
And he's here with us again this week. There he is.
representing the Republicans. So, I mean, he is quiet. So he's a good symbol.
Yeah.
He doesn't speak up, so he doesn't speak his mind very well. But anyway, Ernie's with us back again this week.
Yeah.
All right, you had something you wanted
I
to
do,
bring
yeah.
up.
Over the weekend, the nation's largest teacher union embraces fundamental rights to abortion. They say that this is a business item here, and they support this under Roe versus Wade. They are hugely, obviously, left-wing, and the Me Too movement has taken over the teachers union, and the sad part about this is they're teachers. They are killing off the future generation here.
Right.
If I was a parent, I would try to find the list of who's part of that group and be like, not one of those people are going to teach my kid.
Yeah, this is almost like the story I brought up a minute ago. Those people right there are not morally qualified to be teachers.
No, they're not.
They should not be allowed
No.
to have access to children.
Every child, every person has a right, and for them to say that they're disposable, they're not teachers. They're
They should see the sanctity of life, and they should respect life. If they don't respect life, then how are they going to see their students in a good light? How are they going to?
Well, I don't. People are going to have to stand up and start demanding that these people not be allowed in this case, public schools.
Right.
We were fortunate in that we were able to. We have a really good Christian school that you went to from pre-K on, and all your teachers. We met your teachers. They were all very good Christian people. They were all very pro-life. Some of them really admired the work that we were doing. So we knew you always had pro-life teachers when you were going to Liberty Christian. But everybody doesn't have that option. And so if you don't have the option about that, then you need to get these degenerates out of your school system.
Well, I know, and there's 3 million members, and you can't tell me all 3 million are pro-choice.
Raging pro-aborts.
Or
right.
raging pro-aborts here. And, if I were one of these, I would be fighting. I would make a stink.
Yep.
Well, and plus, that those teachers who are pro-choice, abortion advocates, they're not going to, just sit back on the
No.
issue. They're going to impose those beliefs on students, even though they're not
Right.
supposed to in public
Yeah.
school
Right.
systems.
And that makes me angry.
Yep.
They get enough of that when they go to universities and colleges,
Yeah.
back
Yeah.
off.
Yep. You were fortunate your kids went to public school, but from what I recall,
We're a very small town.
Little country town.
and very Christian, very
Yeah.
Christian.
Very
Although
good,
we've got some pro boards there that say they're Christian, but
yeah, well, they're liars.
that happens.
Yeah, that's another issue.
If
That's
you
another
call
issue.
yourself pro-choice and a Christian, you're a liar and a heretic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But-
which
But you didn't have many of them from
No,
what I can tell.
there's not that I can tell either, but
Right.
yeah.
All right. Anyway, you had a story you wanted to bring up,
yes,
too.
on the other end of the spectrum, I have two science stories. One is a new study found a number of potentially harmful side effects linked to chemically induced abortions. So there's a 3-year study done by some scientists that found biological, physiological, and behavioral changes among rats who received 2 abortion drugs. They showed decreases in appetite, exploratory movement, and self-care. So basically, they found in these mice that abortion drugs are bad. And of course, they're can't do the studies on, humans. But there's a link. And I mean,
I'm sure the abortion industry is really going to
Worried
take
about
this to
this.
heart.
yeah.
No,
yeah.
not at all.
Not at all.
What the abortion industry cares about is expanding access. They even want, there's even controversy right now about sending abortion pills through mail, you know.
FDA approved. Yeah, and it's hard for some of these people to get pregnant too after they take, any kind of drug that you put in your system, even if it's Tylenol or Advil, it's bad for you. But I mean, you're doing this knowing what you're doing here. You're killing a child and you're hurting yourself,
Right.
not just mentally, physically, and emotionally, but just, I mean, through the drugs that are entering into your system.
Well, think about this, Renee. Years ago, let's say that you were, around in the 1940s, and you had some sort of physical problem. You went to the doctor, and he checked you out, and he said, or she said, "Look, you've got," and he gave this name to this thing you have, and there is treatment for it. Now, one of the side effects of the drugs that you'll need to take is that you'll become infertile. You wouldn't be able to get pregnant.
Right.
And your periods would stop, and this would happen, and this would happen, and this would happen. And your first thought would be, wait a minute, this sounds pretty dangerous right here.
Yeah.
If I'm going to take this pill that's going to render me infertile, what else is it going to do?
Yeah,
Now what
exactly.
we're doing is we're saying, oh, come take this pill. It'll make you infertile.
Right.
Or it'll slough off the baby you already have.
Right.
Well,
I mean, and not just that, but the waste that's coming out of your body into the sewer systems that we're drinking here, and birth control mainly is what I'm talking about. But even this,
we found that study you're referring to is in Colorado a few years ago, where they found this stream where these fish were all infertile.
Yep.
All these fish were infertile, and the species of fish was dying out.
Right.
When they did research on it, they found out that these fish were being made infertile by birth control that had been urinated out by women, leached into the water, and the purification did
you
not.
cannot
didn't get it
purify
out.
it. No.
Well, and they tell you not to flush medicine. There's a reason for that,
Right.
but it still has to be expelled somehow.
Yeah.
And also, we find out all the time that some drug people have been using for years and years and years. There's a new aspect that we learn about it that shows, oh, this drug is really dangerous, and they pull it from the market. Well, abortion pills, number one, kill a child, and number two, no telling what they do.
To the mother, right.
Exactly. And I mean, we see now that they have this effect on rats. What effect do they have on females?
And I would like to mention, though, that if you're in the situation where you're taking an abortion drug, there is always a reversal. Go to
Yep.
abortionreversal.com.
And the abortion industry is fighting that tooth and
Yes.
nail.
They say that it's not scientifically proven, number one. They say it's not safe and it's not FDA approved. It's not effective. Well, it is effective because there are
Yes.
babies out there right
Yeah.
now that have been saved because
Yep.
of the abortion pill reversal.
That's right.
Right. And as far as the FDA approval not existing, I want to point something out.
There's not many things.
When the abortion pill was in clinical trials, RU46 was in clinical trials, they had very specific guidelines that they used, right? The dosage amounts, 600 milligram dosages, just one example. You had to live within 20 minutes of an emergency hospital. You had to come back for your post drug sonograms. You had to, all these things you had to do. They got it approved under those guidelines. Immediately, the abortion industry started selling it under no guidelines.
Exactly.
They didn't use 600 milligram
Yes.
dosages. They used 200 milligram
yeah.
dosages, 1/3 dosages.
Yep, they lowered it.
They went through all of it. They didn't come in. They didn't require a woman to come in and say, "Now, do you live within 20 minutes of a
Right.
emergency hospital?" Not only that, they were caught telling women who were in the clinical trials. This was in Washington State. We covered this years ago on Life Talk. They caught some of these abortion clinic that were doing the clinical trials, telling women, if you have a problem, do not go to the emergency room that you're within 20 minutes of.
Right.
You call us, and we'll take care of the
Yeah,
problem.
That's
And
a
they
big
don't.
red flag.
And that's a major red flag.
Yes.
So don't give me this FDA approval nonsense.
Yeah.
When you're sitting here putting this dangerous chemical into women, knowing that you're not following the protocol that the drug manufacturer
Right.
and the federal government approved it under.
That's right.
So don't give me that
Yeah,
crap.
and there's study after study.
By the way, we had a situation that's, and we'll be going to robots here in a minute, but I want to go over this real quick. In New York City, the police found a baby they estimated to be 20 weeks old underneath a tree that had been abandoned. The baby was dead, a little girl. And the 6 New York City Police Department officers said, hey, look, this baby deserves some dignity and a proper burial.
Yeah.
And they acted as pallbearers
Yes.
for her funeral.
That's awesome.
And the whole thing was organized by a pro-life group called the Life Center of New York. And they organized this event, but these police officers participated in giving this little baby, and they gave her a name. They called her Monica. And now her body was discovered in a bag with bloody clothing underneath a tree near the Nathaniel Green School. And I think that's a public school up there. I don't know much about it, but anyway. And the media reported, the New York media reported, that this was probably a baby that was abandoned after a miscarriage. Now, I want to remind you, and you and I know this, when we did the interview with the 3 girls down in Houston,
Right.
abortion clinic employees,
Right.
who said that they routinely saw these situations
Yes.
where the media covers a baby that was abandoned in a junior high school toilet,
Just a public bathroom.
a public
somewhere.
bathroom, McDonald's, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
That these were very often women that had come in for abortions,
Right.
gotten the laminaria
Yes.
the day before, because these are late-term abortions. This was a 20-week right
Yes.
here,
And she had to have the
laminaria.
Thank you.
And the baby, then she expels the baby
Yes.
and never shows up for her follow-up.
Right.
Now, when a woman goes in and has 20 or 25 laminaria sticks put in her, or just 10, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, your uterus.
You got to
is
get
gonna
those out.
open. Yeah.
You can't not go back for the follow-up visit.
Right.
Right? But these women were telling us, they gave us one specific example. A baby was found in a bathroom of a McDonald's. And they had a patient that had laminaria the day before
Right.
and didn't show up for her abortion appointment.
Right.
They said, we knew exactly
It was her.
whose baby this
Yeah.
was. This
Because
was
the
her
news
baby.
covered it.
It expelled into the bathroom,
Right.
into the toilet. She takes off, and doesn't go back for the follow-up appointment.
Right.
And they probably don't try to even follow up. I
No,
mean, because
they don't need to.
yeah,
They know what
they
happened.
got their money,
don't
they put
care.
the luminary in, and it's not their problem anymore.
They know exactly what happened, and that's what these women said. They said, we used to see this all the time.
Right.
And we see these cases in the media on a pretty routine basis, where they find a dead baby somewhere in a bathroom or in a school or like this underneath a tree somewhere. Let me tell you what I'll bet you. I would make a pretty good sized wager with somebody on this. Let's say that you went to this Nathaniel Green school or any other schools that might be nearby. They might not be the only school. And you got a list of all the female students that go to that school. And then you took that list to the nearest abortion clinic and looked at their appointment book for that day.
Right.
I'll bet you that name's going to be on there.
Well, even if that name isn't in there, and even if, this was just a miscarriage, the fact that the baby was abandoned shows how society feels about life.
No
now.
maternal instinct for that mom.
There's no maternal instinct, and we don't care about life. We don't respect life, which it shows up in all kinds of places, and it also shows up in the scientific community as well.
Right.
For instance, there was a article about scientists from Rockefeller University who are doing scientific experiments on not actual human embryos, but a bunch of bundled stem cells that pretty much act like human embryos.
They're calling humanoids.
Yes, they're calling them humanoids, embryoids.
Embroids, yeah.
Embroids. They see that they made the 10-day-old model change from a perfect sphere into something less symmetrical to study the early human development. And so there are restrictions on studying human early development. They can't be, human embryos that are more than 14 days old can't be studied. And so these scientists are putting together stem cells that are models.
Yeah.
Models.
Right.
Well, they say that that even if they were allowing these embryoids to develop, that they wouldn't turn into human
They're not
beings.
humans.
Yeah, and
Well,
so I'm.
Let me tell you something. I can't even Sheila doesn't know about this, but you do. We're involved in something. We've talked about it on previous Life Talks for a couple of years now, actually. And we're getting closer and closer. And this issue is tied to the thing that we're studying. You don't know anything about it yet, but you will, as will the audience eventually. There is some really frightening things going on out there.
Yes, there are.
And it goes back, and we stumbled across it, as you know, years before you came here, back when Zentra, my assistant at that time, and I were doing the baby parts investigation. Right. We stumbled across some stuff that we never talked about. We still haven't to this day talked about it in public. But now we've seen where it's headed.
Yes.
And there's some new stuff out there that is happening, and that we've been approached by some other people about this.
Right.
And I wish we could be.
We can't talk about it.
Yeah, we can't talk about it
Yeah,
yet.
don't say anything.
It's going to be big.
But it's going to be big when we're
Yeah.
able to talk about it.
But my question is, when is the line drawn? These scientists are saying that this is an embryoid, that it's a model similar to a human being, but it's not a human being. That this would never grow up to be a human being.
They know what they're doing.
Number one, where is that line? When do they decide to cross that line? Number two, can we trust them in
No.
believing that these aren't human beings?
No, you can't trust them. And let me tell you, the most dangerous force on earth, is science that is unfettered by morality. When you say, we'll separate science and morality from each other. Morality's off the table. Now we can do anything we want to do.
Yeah, and they are.
And they are.
And they don't want to stop. They don't know how to stop.
That's what
it's an obsession.
That's what you and I are seeing in this stuff that we're working on
Yes.
now. And it is truly frightening.
It is very frightening.
It is very frightening.
Yeah.
Yeah, once we get, I believe in scientific study. It's important. But you can't throw morality out the window. And when you start playing God, then there's an issue.
Yep, that's right. Okay, I'll tell you what. Let's take a moment out for robots, and when we come back, we have just a real short thing I want to go over that we've talked about before. Anyway, let's watch this episode of Robots.
In 1973, the U.S. Supreme Court legalized abortion nationwide. The decision is called Roe v. Wade, and those who defend it are known as robots. This is how they think.
I am pro-life, but abortion is not a constitutional issue for the Supreme Court to decide. Each state should be allowed to set its own abortion policies.
For someone who claims to be pro-life to make that statement is utter nonsense. The pro-life position is that unborn children are persons, and both the 5th and 14th Amendments to the United States Constitution establish that all persons have a constitutional right to life. Even Harry Blackmun, the Supreme Court justice who wrote the Roe v. Wade decision, said that if the unborn are persons, their lives are protected by the Constitution. So obviously, in order for someone to say that abortion should be left up to the states to decide, they must first conclude that the unborn are not persons. And if they want to take that position, they are certainly free to do so. But what they cannot do is take that position and be pro-life at the same time. The fact is, anyone who claims to be pro-life while arguing that state legislatures have the right to let unborn children be executed by the millions is either a pro-life fraud or has absolutely no understanding about what it means to be pro-life. All right, we're back. Real quickly here, we're just about out of time. You often hear us use the term pro-choice here sometimes.
Yes.
And I use it a lot when I go out and do speeches, or not speeches, but television interviews and radio interviews and that sort of thing. And I'll get criticized for that. I have said for years, first off, there is no distinction between pro-choice and pro-abortion.
No.
The baby is just as dead.
Yes.
You're not going to tell me that that baby who's lying there having his arms and legs ripped off, or her arms and legs ripped off, is concerned about what the person who's doing it caused themselves.
Well, I mean, the person that says that they're pro-choice is not pro-life, period, because
Right.
even though they wouldn't have an abortion, it's the woman's choice
Right.
in her body.
So there's no distinction between
Yes.
the two. And the very often though, but what happens here is that we call somebody a pro-abort or pro-abortion in a debate or argument over abortion. You have to understand something. The biggest goal of someone who's taking the pro-abortion side of an argument is to not have to talk about abortion, because they lose those arguments. So if they can divert us over here to having to talk about, oh, I'm not pro-abortion, I'm pro-choice, and we get into that little contest,
Right.
and it's very meaningless, making no difference to the baby,
Right.
then they don't have to talk about abortion.
Right.
You're better off, I think, in many cases, if you're debating someone, say, look, you're a pro-abort, you're pro-abortion, you and I both know you are, but that's okay. You can call yourself pro-choice. Now let's talk about abortion.
Yeah.
All right? We'd be better off doing that. But let me tell you when we're really better off. And there are many times when it actually benefits the pro-life movement to refer to them as pro-choice. When they've done something bad, when a woman has been killed in an abortion clinic, don't call the people who did it pro-aborts.
Right.
Call them pro-choice.
Pro-choice.
If a woman's been raped in an abortion clinic, the people that did it are not pro-abortion, they're pro-choice.
Yeah, because I mean, it's the same, and it's, calling them for what they are.
If a woman's been murdered because she refused to have an abortion, which we have a report out on that, how often that happens, don't say that she was murdered by a pro-abort. She was murdered by somebody who's pro-choice. The list goes on and on. If we show that they're protecting these pedophiles, which we did with our child predator project, it's not the pro-aborts that are protecting these men who rape children. It's the pro-choice crowd
Right.
that's protecting them.
Right.
What we've got to remember is that we benefit when we toxify the word choice, and when we hang everything that's done by these people that support legalized abortion, when we hang that around the neck of choice.
They don't have to be some hardcore abortion advocate who goes out and protests or a clinic escort. People who call themselves pro-choice are for abortion.
They're part of the system.
They're for abortion.
Yeah.
They're for the murdering of a baby. They're for the raping of women in abortion clinics. They're for the harmful effects that it has on women and the death of babies.
Yeah, they may not be for women being raped,
Yeah.
but they're responsible for it.
Yeah, because that's what the choice leads to.
They're not protecting them, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So don't automatically assume that we're better off referring to them as pro-abortion. I do a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
But if they've done something that we want to hang around their head, call them pro-choice.
They mean the same thing. They're
Right.
interchangeable.
Right.
There's a really neat image on, I don't know if it's Facebook or Instagram or whatever, it was shared to me, but there were 5 women that were pretty pregnant. They were probably, I would say 30 weeks or so. And they had their belly showing, and on it said pro-choice. And so they were trying to use their rhetoric against them. They were pro-choice. They kept their baby.
Yeah, right.
They were pro-choice.
We have an action card that people can go online, lifedynamics.com, under products and see it. But we have an action card that shows a mother hugging her baby, and it says, "Some choices are better left to God."
Yeah.
And I mean,
Or have you hugged your choice today?
yeah.
You know, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, just don't automatically assume that we profit by calling them pro-abortion.
Right.
We profit when we hang the atrocities of the abortion industry around their neck and say that's what choice means.
Yes.
They are pro-choice.
Exactly.
Yep.
And how can they object to that? That's what you said.
And because of that, some of them have even started saying, "Oh no, we're the pro-life ones.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Pro-choicers are the real pro-life ones because we care about what happens to babies after they're born. Like pro-lifers don't care."
Like we don't care.
Yeah.
They use that against us all the time.
Yep, that's pretty standard. Anyway, anything else?
Nothing else. If you have
guys-
any show ideas, send them our way. We would love to hear from them. Even like things that are trending, just anything you want us to talk about, let us know. And Sheila has.
If we use your idea, we will send you a coffee mug.
Life Dynamics official
Yes.
coffee mug. Nobody else can put those out except
No,
us.
trademarked.
Trademark coffee mug. Yeah.
Yeah.
You get one for free. Holds a lot of coffee.
Yeah.
It's big.
It does.
We want your show ideas.
We want your show ideas or just your comments. If you
Or
just have a comment, you don't
Yeah.
like something we said, or you really like it, or Renee offended you somehow or another,
I'm very offensive.
right? Let us know, and
Yeah.
we'll take care of it, and we'll put it on the show, and then we'll embarrass you with how you offended these poor people.
Go for it. I need to hear. I
Right.
need to hear some.
Anyway, we need to hear from you, so just let us know. Anyway, that's all the time we have for this day, for this Life Talk. Until next Tuesday, remember, Life Dynamics is not here to put up a good fight. We're here to win, because winning is how this killing will stop. We will see you next week.